Vision depends upon one type of heat called biochemistry.
Because heat only occurs in the intersol, that zone between the ground state electron shell and the newly induced higher electron shell of molecules. Only humans can't very well understand this, because we are biomolecular machines existing in the heat zone of the intersol where consciousness is operational.
When photons are absorbed by the object's ground state electron shells, they are re-emitted, traveling to the eye where the signal is transduced, becoming an image on the visual cortex of the brain. Photon absorption and re-emission is the main mechanism by which information from the surrounding world, sound and vision becomes our reality. Photon absorption and re-emission causes expansion of the negative field surrounding the outermost ground state electron shells, creating matter in motion, which is heat.
Now, let's ponder the question of why heat can be very confusing. It is so confusing that it is even difficult to understand why it is confusing. But here goes. We live in an atmosphere which acts like a photon reservoir, giving us a steady supply of photons, and this area is like a greenhouse. The photons bounce around molecule to molecule, providing us with the extra photons which operate the covalent bonds of the molecules of which we are made. The infrared photons can penetrate to the dermis and be absorbed in the ground state electron shell of neurons known as thermoreceptors. This photon absorption triggers a response which travels to our brain, causing us to think we feel warmth or heat. The photon itself is not heat. The confusion is caused by the difference. Heat that we think of is nothing more than an interpretation of impulses, whereas in reality, heat is the interaction of the photon with the neuron's ground state shell. This is not an illusion, it is just how your entire sensory system, including vision, operates, and it is interpretive.
When there are not enough extra photons in the surroundings to operate covalent bonds of molecules, the material becomes brittle as covalent bonds begin to fail.
Minus 320 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the temperature of this liquid nitrogen.
As such, chemistry is a type of heat, as is just about everything that happens.
Turns out it's impossible to get to absolute zero, because no matter how cold you get, everything has tiny quantum jitters. And where you have motion, even a tiny amount, you have heat.
But if heat is matter in motion, doesn't that mean that a race car or a man running is an example of heat?
Absolutely, Rachel. But we are talking about different levels of organization. At each level of organization there are more levels below there themselves organized until that pattern you observe is achieved. I am working on a tutorial about the levels of organization right now. Both the race car and the man running are examples of several layers of heat, and there is matter organized up from a focal center. I believe that it is the center of gravity being the focal center of each object in the universe, which in turn organizes matter into layers of organization. It is a bit difficult to describe, but I will get there someday. Gravity is the center of each atom's positive charge of protons organized into a focal center of each object due to the environment of absolute zero existing below ground state of each atom making up molecules. Matter itself contains this inner positive charge which reaches out to pull on the outer negative charge surrounding each atom, which in turn are organized into molecules, which in turn are organized into subsystems such as tissues, organs, organ systems, and on up until we get to the level of the human as a whole.
So, the first level of organization is heat at the ground state electron shells of atoms, and the second level up happens at the space between atoms making up molecules. I can see now that we are talking about zones where heat occurs. It is just as described in the biology books that they go on and on about. Levels of organization over and over. After that, the third level of organization, for us humans at least, would be the molecules organized into tissues, then further into organ parts, then organs, organ systems, until finally the organism. It is the steady supply of light photons which provides the time and energy for the uniquely higher level of organization made possible here in the biosphere of Earth. In other words, the constant supply of light photons provides the steady supply of heat. So, gravity acts very strongly to bind atoms into molecules. Is that because gravity is strong when it is very close, such as is the case in covalent bonds, where atoms come together to form molecules? There must be a tension or compression as the negative charges are squeezed together but never actually touch. Is the solar system an object? Depending on our reference point, the Earth is one object, whereas the entire solar system could be considered one object as well. That is another example of layers of organization.
Are you ready to go get a spot of tea?